And we're live. Welcome. Good day, whiskey brothers and sisters. And it's day for us in Alberta, but it's night for these cats out east. We're honored to have you, the viewer, and our panel with us tonight. My name's Dolph. I'm the president of the Alberta Scotch Society, and I'm the founder of the Whisky Book Club. And I'm your host tonight. For those new to us, I'll explain a little bit what we're about. We're a group of whiskey geeks that love to share a dram, this one right there, and share a passion for reading, mostly about whiskey or whiskey-related activities. The choice of our present tome, our third book, was inspired initially by our sense of adventure, my long-held desire to do the Whiskey Trail in Scotland and the Bourbon Trail with our friends down south. Canada's got so much history, so much whiskey. Why not make our own whiskey bourbon trail? We're going to call it Canadian Whisky Journey. So, thanks to Blair and Davin's tour guide book with loads of pictures, good for me because I'm visual, maps, directions, suggestions, checklists. We have the direction we need. We have the inside track we crave. And Davin and Blair will indeed be our spirits guides on this journey as we cross this vast, beautiful country of ours, and specifically where we are tonight in Rimouski, Quebec, with Distillery du Saint-Laurent. When we're done our first hour, stick around. We'll continue the fun with a more relaxed atmosphere broadcast called The After Draft, and it starts about 5 minutes after this broadcast. So let's start our roundtable introduction with our names, other platform handles, as well as what you have in your glass. And I'm pretty sure most of us have the 3-grain whiskey in the glass tonight. We'll start with Davin Blair, and then we'll go with Joël, Jean-François, and Drew, and then back to me. So, you ready, Davin?
I'm ready. Hi, I'm Davin de Kergommeaux. I am co-author of the Definitive Guide to Canadian Distilleries, the book that we have been following in our travels across Canada that have brought us tonight to Distillery Saint-Laurent. And tonight I'm drinking some Saint-Laurent 3-grain whiskey. So I'm at Davin DEK on Instagram and Twitter.
Thank you, kind sir. Blair, you're up.
Yeah, co-author of the Definitive Guide to Canadian Distilleries. And I see that Davin and I didn't call each other about our shirts, but we're both enjoying, well, I'm also enjoying the Distillery Saint-Laurent 3-grain whiskey.
Gentlemen, let's start with Joël.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joël, the co-founder and co-owner of Distillery du Saint-Laurent.
Sorry. Jean-François, I'm a co-owner also, head of the production here at the Distillery du Saint-Laurent.
So we are located in Rimouski. So it's a small town located right on the shores of the St. Laurent River. So we're about 6-hour drive northeast of Montreal City, about 3-hour drive from Quebec City. So it's a beautiful area to make outdoor activity and also distill some nice whiskeys.
We're sitting in front of our 2,000-liter copper still, which we made in which we made the 3-grain whiskey. We also enjoyed with you guys.
Thank you, gentlemen. Well worth the trip. And Drew.
Hi, Drew Semper, reading the Definitive Guide to Canadian Whiskey and enjoying my 3-grain.
Beautiful. And back to me, I'm Dolph, again, president of the Alberta Scotch Society, and I'm here with these cats introducing them all. And really, really happy to be here tonight. So back in Quebec for us, and I got to get some pictures going so you can get an idea where Rimouski is. So just give me a second. And here, let's get that. So we're all one beside each other. And get that brand in there. Here's the first picture. So this is kind of you can see it's right on the Saint Laurent and north of Quebec and quite a distance from Montreal. On a larger scale, you see that, or as you go through Quebec, but this is where we're coming from. So actually, no. If you look at this first map, you can see how we got there from Distillery Saint-Laurent, and it depends how we took, but it looks like it took us 4 hours and 1 minute to get there, which isn't so bad. And that's coming from New Brunswick too. They have their other distillery in Quebec, but we didn't use that. So let me give another couple pictures. pictures because we've got quite a few to start this off. Let's look at this. This is from your site, Joël et Jean-François. You've got these three words, which are obviously very important to you as they're the first thing you see on your homepage. So we got proud, stubborn, independent. So my first question to you two gentlemen is, why these three specifically? And are they just as important today as they were in 2015?
Yeah, well, each three words, I think that they means a lot. Well, I think these three words describe as much the distillery and me and Jean-François, both the individuals. So
you have to go back at the beginning of the distillery. We celebrated our 5th anniversary a couple of weeks ago. When we started all that, we didn't add those kind of copper pots still. We started with the gin with big expectations on the equipment we wanted, but nobody knew nobody understood at that moment what was gin going to be. Now we know, so now we could afford these type of equipment. But before that, we had to be like really stubborn to go through all the obstacles to just start the distillery and have the first product.
So we're two really stubborn guys. We don't stop when there's a problem in front of us. We get where we want to go, even with really small scale of this of production, very small money to start. We kept going in the first year, and we are really proud of that, and also really proud of producing. I think that's pretty common in the craft industry, even beer or winemaking or craft spirits. I think that every artisan usually are kind very proud of what they're doing. And the last word, independent. Well, you guys know that it's not that common to have independent spirit producer. More and more big companies buy the smaller guys, and so we thought that it could be fun to run a small scale distilling activities and stay independent and stay small and just produce on a human scale and have fun along the way. So those three words have been written on the bottle since the first day, and this thing meant a lot for us.
It's still good for you. And here, I'm just going to put that on. We're proud to be amongst Quebec's micro distillers, pioneers, and you are pioneers, stubborn to produce spirits in a traditional way with our region's raw resources while remaining independent, facing large corporations that are flooding the shelves with cheap, generic products. I like that. And it's a little bit of a shot, too. I like that. Excellent.
Jean-François was enjoying that.
What is this? Who's this good-looking guy? So, Jean-François, now you can add model to your curriculum vitae.
The funny thing, if I may, this picture was taken between two pictures. Joel was doing just a photo shoot as we always do here, and I was just kidding around. And after that, he said, "Well, you know what? That's the one I took." And when we look at the book with the page showing what Quebec distilling is, it's that place, and I honestly think that represents all the industry here.
I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
You're a happy guy. I like seeing it. And the Asram on arrière, right behind you, looks nice. So, Davin and Blair, let's go back to you guys. Why did you pick that picture, gentlemen?
Yeah, our designer for the book, Andrew Roberts, actually picked that picture and put that in there. And then he sent it to us to take a look at it. And there's this famous World War II photo of a sailor in Times Square bending a woman over, kissing her. And it's massive, famous photo. And the guy that took that photo wishes he took that photo. So it's pretty sharp. And when Davin and I saw that page, it was a no-brainer. That was the photo we had to go with.
It just captures. It just captures the whole the fun that Quebec has with things that they taste. You know, their meat and their food, their bread, their cheese. and their spirits. It's Canada's best kept culinary secret. And I just thought the mischievous look, it says they're having fun. And those barrels are so professional. They're making great stuff. And it's really true. I think every distiller in Quebec should be proud that they're represented by that picture.
Yeah, and it does look mischievous. You're right about that. If you're wondering, everyone, what picture that is, that's on page 218, 219 of the book. And then the page after that, you see everything from Quebec. What's nice about this is you pick them amongst a lot of distilleries, because we're getting into the Maritimes now, where we've already been the Maritimes, New Brunswick. Not a whole bunch of distilleries, but Quebec's got 30 in here. And they might have a couple more, and I'm not sure if any actually closed down over COVID, but that's quite a bit. So you're well representing your compatriots in Quebec. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think since the date we sent that in to be published, I think Quebec, you guys are up to what, around 55 now?
Only associations, we are 50 now. Other than that, there's two types of licenses, but we won't get into that. But there's some really small scale distilleries, mostly wineries, that are not in those 50. So it's probably closer to 60 now, but let's say 50 up and running in the Distilling Association.
Excellent. That's a lot of them. Here, let's put this picture on too, because this is from you guys. It's not Davin and Blair's. This came off of, it was either Instagram or your homepage or Facebook. I get them from various places. Jolie, Jean-Francois, tell me, were you fairly happy to be in the book? Well, for one, to get that picture in there, but also just to be in the book generally. What do you think about that? I'm guessing you're pretty proud. And on Facebook, you can kind of tell. If you read it, it's in French, but people can read this guy up here. You can see how happy you actually are. So tell me, what's it like to be in a book?
We were proud because when we started, one of the first things we thought is there were not really any distilling tradition in Quebec. Well, we used to have one before Prohibition, and also, well, there's those really big distilleries that have been distilling whiskey and gin and even vodka for the last century. But on a very small scale production, we didn't have 5 years ago any tradition of distillation at all in Quebec. So when we started, me and Jean-François, the first thing we said, well, we are starting our own tradition. We are trying different stuff, and let's see what happens, and let's have some fun. And 5 years later, we have this book in our hands, and we see that not only there's now about 30 distilleries in that book, but we are considered one of the distillery to follow, and so that's make us really proud of it.
Yeah, it's a big achievement. It's a big reconnaissance. No, recognition. Sorry for that. It's really. Yeah, we were really happy to see that, especially with the picture. But more than that, like Joel said, it's really like, okay, these guys are appreciating the work and the heart we put in what we're doing. So yeah, it was a good thing to see that.
Well, that's what Davin and Blair are. They appreciate a lot, and they appreciate the whiskey you gave us tonight. I'm really liking the 3 grains, gentlemen. It's great. Do me a quick favor though. Tell me what % this is, because on our samples, I don't think any of us got the percentages.
So that's 43%. 43%.
Okay.
So this is our first whiskey. We've been distilling whiskey full time now since September 2017. So it's been 3 years from now. This is our first recipe. We started with bourbon mash bill.
Yep.
Why we did that? Because, well, we think we are halfway between what the Scottish do in Scotland and what the American do just out of here with the bourbon.
Yeah.
So we're kind of halfway geographically, and we are using different type of equipment and also tradition. So we use like you see behind us, we use Scottish type of pot still, all copper pot still. These are specific mechanical 2,000 liter pot still. So this is the type of pot still that the Scots use to make Scotch whiskey. But we make mash bills, so different type of mash bills, and we keep the grain in the fermentation and distillation. So we are graining, and that's usually what the Americans do. So we're kind of halfway.
Yeah. So in this specific recipe, there's 75% of corn. So it's really like a bourbon style that cannot be called bourbon. So it's 75% corn. It's 15% rye and 10% malted barley. The mash bill is made, like Joy said, like the American. So we blend the cereal before the mashing, graining all the way. The Scottish type still is really interesting. At it let a lot of flavor goes through the distillate compared to let's say traditional bourbon still, which has like 5 plates or something like that. So it's really let's say flavorful. We like it. So and we said like, well, we will do it the Scottish way, like a Scotch, but with a bourbon mash. We find it really good though. It's we have to keep in mind that this is our first distillate. That's the first ever distillate in the distillery. It's made in brand new American oak. So it's really typical bourbon, but we call it pre-grain as it is the way now here in Quebec.
Well, it's fantastic. We're going to talk about it a little bit later when we get into that and the rise and the other things that you're doing. But what I didn't do yet, I didn't really introduce either one of you two gentlemen. So let's put this one up. I love this picture. Postmodern apothecary, neo-druid, idyllic alchemist, and aromatic shaman. The production captain rules over the working force and the machinery. He is openly dependent on Angelica. And great picture. And we can tell online that you're the master distiller. You do a lot of your videos, and you're on the videos in your distillery. I love that. But then when we go to Joed, co-founder and brand admiral, and I love that title, brand admiral. You're in charge of branding, marketing, the espresso machine. The admiral acts as both the distillery's ambassador and mascot. Long ago, he inherited the business world's secret art of handshaking from a Belarusian master. That's fantastic. I like that a lot. But I need to know, what does a brand admiral, what does that entail? What's your job as a brand admiral? Not ambassador, admiral.
Well, when me and Jean-François met, our friendship was all about spirits. So we get to know each other by sipping some scotch and whiskeys and rum. And when we started the distillery, we knew that we had very complementary skill sets. So Jean-François is really good at tinkering stuff and mashing and make good products, and I'm mostly on the other part of the business, taking care of all the branding and sales and business development and and stuff like that.
As you guys probably know, like spirits, the image of spirits is really important. It's somehow like between the alcohol and the perfume. It's really, you have like some bottles that are really, really rich on the label, on the bottle shape and everything. So when we started that, we said, if we want to succeed, we need to make great booze. That's one thing, but half of our energy needs to be put into selling that good stuff. So that's why we started like pretty poorly with no money, but we put a lot also in the branding with small stills. But branding was really, really important for us to express what we are there, the story behind the product.
And continue with what you're saying, Jean-François. Sometimes we think about branding and we only think about the bottle and label, but it's important to have good storytelling, to communicate what we're doing in try to educate also the consumers on craft spirits. When we started a few years ago, people didn't really knew how spirits were made, and now 5 years later, people when we make visits, people are more and more educated on spirits, and that's because I think we take a lot of we put a lot of energy in our communications and all marketing activities to not only promote our product but just to educate people on spirits.
Yeah.
And you did that on your online presence really well. Like when you look at your Facebook and the videos there, it's fantastic. I like that a lot. I wanted to ask you both, were you both involved on the startup plan in the original plan? Did you both have the same vision, or did one person kind of take the lead when it came to where you want to go and then the other person with the spirits, or were you both in on it for everything?
Well, it's all started in the basement somewhere. We will not tell you which basement. On some rocking chair just before a homemade pot still dripping drop by drop, and just making the architecture of what would be fun to do about that. So it's really where it started, and we really soon in this project we had the same vision. Yeah,
I think that I can say that what drives us both is fun, and to meet nice people and to create nice stuff, and to have a staff that we feel like family with them. So I think that that's really what drives us, and the vision has always been to do stuff and make stuff that we enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And the day that we won't have for fun anymore, we'll need to have some a good speak with good whiskey, because trying to just have fun and so that's and the vision just get along with that.
All right. Excellent, and both very important. Before I go to a picture, I was going to have a picture, one of your very first posts of all times. You started in 2015, so I'm going back 5 years worth of your posts on Instagram. It took a while. Davin, just a little bit of information from you, please, on the history of, like I said, a 2-minute history lesson on Quebec and distilleries and what these guys are kind of forging ahead with, because there is a big history with them in Quebec in distilling.
Well, I think, and I think Blair, you can jump in here. Joel is right that there's always been, moonshining, and Quebec really was more of a rum than a whiskey province. I think there's still a lot more interested in rum than in whiskey in Quebec. But there have been a couple of pretty major enterprises there, like Shenley, Louis Rosensteel had his major Shenley distillery where they made, Golden Wedding, and they made Gibsons, and they made a lot of really huge volume whiskeys. And of course, Seagram's opened a distillery there. They brought the Greenbrier distillery up from the States, and they set it up in LaSalle, just outside of Montreal. And that has turned out to be, it kind of morphed into Crown Royal, which is the best-selling brand of Canadian whiskey in the world. It's the second best-selling whiskey of any kind in North America. So there's been a lot of distilling in Quebec, but the tradition there of artisanal food and drink making is very real. If you look at apples and things like that, and what's truly exciting now is the Asarum, making spirits from maple sap. That, it blows my mind. I have to tell you, I think I'm on my 6th bottle now. That stuff is, I'm honestly, guys, that stuff is so unbelievably great. It's really good. And Shefford sent me a bottle of vodka made from Asarum. you know what? You can taste the minerals in it. So I think there's a long history, but I think that also Jean-Francois is right there. They're writing a new history, a new chapter now, and they're establishing new traditions. So it's sort of tabula rasa. They're starting with a clean slate.
Excellent.
Despite the long history.
Blair, anything to add to that?
No, it's pretty damn good.
Pretty damn good. Drew, I'm going to come to you with a question from the side if there's anything in a minute. I just want to get this one out of the way before I forget, because this was the very first one. Premier Lodge Captain, so that's his first. But it talks about les inconnus, really. So what were the unknowns in distilling, gentlemen, that you didn't expect on a big scale? Now we'll talk about small scale in the after dram where we're allowed to poke a little bit and get more information. But right now, big scale, c'est quoi les inconnus? What were these unknowns for you guys?
The thing is, we're really following the craft movement that we've seen in the States. And what is really specific about it is people are getting in that movement, but without the knowledge of distilling. It's not like you go into Scotland, like everybody has been working in a distillery or knows somebody as a brother, a wife, or everybody knows somebody who's been working in the whiskey industry. And the craft distilling movement, everybody's coming from everywhere. For myself, I was a naval architect. So I built that first pot still in a small room while I was working on a shipyard. It started with that. So on a small scale, there's some issues that, as you said, we can talk later. But on the bigger scale, of course, there's like the everyday challenges of making sure that the product is right and learning along the way. So we're getting really close to knowing really the craftsman behind it. But honestly, we're learning every day. And to be honest, that's what I love about it. Because every day we meet somebody who said, did you try that? And and we go further from that point and make it better, make it faster, make it easier, safer, and funnier. So that's the way it is.
All right.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Please
is that
do.
Lynn behind you? Is that's still behind? That's Lynn?
That's Lynn.
Yeah.
So you're a naval architect. You built a 400-liter still on your own, and you didn't know Lynn's arms from her legs.
No, we're French. So
That's a fabulous story. If you don't know the story, folks, you'll have to buy the book because the story's in the book.
The funny thing is when you look, you try to find translation on the distilling industry, everything is in English and sometimes in old English. Even the line arm, I've read a bit about it, and it's really far away to relate to something that is really concrete. It lies on two parts, so it's a line arm. So when we just received the boxes, there was line arm written on one. So we just started, bring lines, Lynn's arm, bring Lynn's legs, whatever. So
we're just having fun when we received all the new equipment 3 years ago. We were having fun because we said, you have to be careful when you're trying to find a name for of a baby or of a still, because usually the first name stays. So you got to be careful.
And I remember Joel was like, no, you're not calling it Lynn. I was like, even if you want to call it Gandalf, or short name would be Lynn.
Well,
Gandalf would have worked fantastic. I love Gandalf. Gandalf the gray or white still. No, Gandalf the copper. There we go.
Yeah, sounds good.
That's a good name. Gentlemen, you were talking about the book, and I'm going to refer to the book because Blair and Davin said that you had a hard time. You had roadblocks getting financing because no one understood micro distilleries back then. So this is 2015. And I've got a quote here from the website where you seem to be a little bit proud of your starting point of being kind of a small distillery, if I could find it. No, I can't find it. It's on your website, but I can't find it. Proud, stubborn? No, I don't have it. Sorry. It says, from a ridiculously small distillery was born a seaweed-infused gin, ridiculously good and unique. Today, in addition to Saint Laurent gin, the distillery produces whiskey using only local grains and acrum, a brand new breed of distilled maple sap spirits. So you're proud of it. You started, you're humble. You started from small, you're growing. When did they finally start to respect the fact that you're going to make some money and that you're a good investment? When did that start?
Well, I think it's quite simple. When you are able as a business to demonstrate that there is some demand for what you're offering, and usually it's that point that after it's easier to get some funds to move forward. So the thing is, in 2013 and 14, when we started the business plan, well, it all started as a hobby in a basement and slowly moved to a business afterwards. But when we first approached some people to get some money, there was no gin movement in Canada or in Quebec, and there was no small craft whiskey movement either. It was beginning in Western Canada and BC mostly, and also in the Okanagan Valley, and also Nova Scotia a little bit. But it was mainly a thing in the US, and we tried to explain to people that it was coming to Quebec, but they wanted to wait just to see if it was true. So we started really small, and after a while, there was demand for our products, and that's how we were able to get some funds after.
Excellent. And Blair, same thing. He wrote your 100th barrel was filled on December 12th, 2018, and that you started with your 400-liter still. What was the name of the 400-liter still?
It was Wong.
Wong.
So,
and then Wong later. We'll get to that. And is it your first year you made 100,000 bottles of gin in your first year?
The first 2 years, let's say, well, before we replaced that small still for a bigger one, still we made over 100,000 bottles with it. So it was pretty working hard, this little one.
You worked it really hard. It's good. You got your money out of your work that you put in to make it before. And was that kind of your turning point? Right before that, when the bank said, yeah, you're going to do it, and you got the financing for the bigger still after that? Was it more than a year or almost 2 years?
It was almost 2 years to get from, just getting all the permits and submitting the first products, the first gin to the ACQ, starting to sell our products, quitting our day jobs, and after start to hire some staff, some people. And after maybe 1 year and a half, we said, it's time to make some whiskey, to move from gin to something else that we care about and we like to do. So that was a turning point, to be able to produce more gin, because at that time we were producing about six days a week. But really, the turning point was we wanted to be able to make some whiskeys and also other aged stuff.
Okay, thank you very much, and I'm glad it did, or it went well, because it's not easy, and it probably was hard and good to quit your job to start distilling full time. But I'm glad you did it. Drew, any questions from the sides we could ask any of these gentlemen?
Yes. Dave is wondering from Davin, what is the best-selling whiskey in North America? And I'm curious, when can we expect the 3 grain to hit the SAQ or hopefully the rest of Canada?
So Davin?
Well, okay, the best-selling whiskey in North America is Jack Daniel's.
Is it? Okay.
Old number 7.
And you can believe it.
Yeah, well, sure, yeah. You should see the graph. My goodness, they take up 20% of the whole graph of all whiskey sold. So, yeah.
All right. And Joël and Jean-François, when are we getting the 3 grain? Either online or through the SAQ?
It has to be through the SAQ. As you know, selling between provinces is a real pain. So we will start with Quebec. It will be available this Christmas, but it's the starting point of the whiskey program. So after that, there will be whiskey on the shelves.
Well, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
All right. When we started to produce whiskey, we were still experimenting with the stills and with the recipes. So we didn't make as much barrels as we're doing now. But you may expect to see the rye whiskey coming next year, and in the forthcoming years. We will try to send some whiskey in across Canada and other provinces. So you can expect to see that happening in the next few years.
Oh, we're looking forward to it, gentlemen. So you talked about your 5-year anniversary, and you had stuff online and on Instagram. You went through the 5 years with very specific pictures on Instagram. But what I noticed that. These were your biggest expansions and your biggest additions. So I'm just going to take a couple pictures. I'm going to show you a couple pictures. Then I'm going to ask you what your biggest expansions were. So, and it's not just these pictures. I'm sure there's other ones in there, but these are the stuff that we see right there. So your first gin one, that's a good looking spill. I like it. It's good. And we've got those, and there's just a couple more I'm going to focus you on before I finally ask you to tell us about all your big steps. All right. And then a whole bunch of really happy people there, wouldn't you say? All right. So what were your big steps, gentlemen? Your biggest steps on your way to where you are now 5 years later?
I would say the biggest step was to the switching of production, meaning adding all the new equipment, because we started with it's really technical. So we started with let's say a plug and play pot still. So it's electric, direct electric connected. There's no steam generator, nothing. So it's just connected to the wall and you distill with it. So you need not that much equipment to start with that. But after that, when you want to make a bit more gin, and mostly you want to start the whiskey program, you need the mash tun, you need the fermenters, you need a pot still, copper pot still, you need a boiler, you need a chiller, you need a lot of stuff. And while you do that, you need to continue producing what is getting the money in. So it was really challenging time, let's say, to have all this around. It was the big step. And after that, it just went pretty smooth and a step-by-step learning curve to get where we are now.
Nice. And let's just bring it back to Davin and Blair. How many distilleries after 5 years are kind of at their point, gentlemen? Can you think of that? I just want to put them in the scope of everyone else that we've seen. 5 years still seem fairly young, but they've done quite a bit, especially, well, the pictures we're going to see later about how they've branched out into Europe a lot too, in Asia.
Yeah, it's really tough to, well, in Quebec, for instance, the scene is quite young still. A lot of distilleries are still around that 3-year mark. But I can think of Subversif. They went through an expansion back in 2018, and they were open, I think, in 2010. Phillips-St in New Brunswick, we're seeing, as we heard last week, they did a lot of expansion. But 5 years, and to see kind of innovation coming out of a distillery, in terms of Asarum is not something you see very often, and there's sort of an upper tier of distilleries in Canada that can have that kind of a claim. Davin, any other distilleries you can think of that took off in a 5-year period like this?
Well, I don't think there's a standard curve. You know, everybody kind of, each distillery has its own personality and goes in its own direction. Circa's doing pretty well. Yeah, there are quite a few that are doing well. I mean, a lot of them, you know, they really push and they put everything into it. I mean, you think of, you know, yeah, I think that by 5 years, a distillery's got to be a going concern, you know, or they've got to be worried about, you know, whether they're going to make it. But I'm really, really happy with what I see coming from Saint Laurent. I'm a little bit surprised that this is a 3-year-old whiskey, because it's really is very, very flavorful for 3 years. You know, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
Don't you think so? Yeah.
I'd like to do, Drew, I'll come back to you if you have a question from the side right after this next one. I just want to do a quick stock of what you sell. So I just want to show these first three because they're, well, 3 gins, and I think they do fairly well. And I got to tell you, I really like this on your webpage. On the bottom where you see the juniper, the spice, the wood, citrusy. So your own flavor wheel, I like seeing that a lot. Not because I want to, to see that before I taste it, but I like to compare what I taste to that. And I'm new to gin, so I want to see if I'm kind of in line with you. So I like this a lot. And here's the third one, Le Gin Vieux. Can you tell us a bit about each one of them, please? So this one right here, gentlemen, can you tell us something about it?
Yeah, so that's the first product we produce, we ever produce here. The idea behind Saint Laurent Gin was, well, we started with the London dry gin tradition and ingredients. So, you know, juniper berries, coriander, angelica roots, some pepper, some citruses. So that's the base of gin, mainly. And we wanted to add a twist of aromas from the St. Lawrence River. So we approached the university here in Rimouski. They are specialized in marine biology, and there are some people that are specialized in seaweeds. So we asked them to bring some seaweed samples, so we can try to invent a gin made with seaweed. So we tried many types of seaweed. Some were not very good. Aquarium or fish food was not really good. But we finally decided to use kombu seaweed or laminaria seaweed, which is a seaweed that is used a lot in Japanese cuisine.
Now, did you get this one? Like, did you start a whole bunch of different ones? Were you buying them? Were you just trying to get them from the St. Lawrence? Is that it? Do you just wanted close to home, or?
Well, you need some permits to harvest the seaweed. So there's a company here based here in Rimouski that harvests those type of seaweed. So they do the harvest, they clean the seaweeds, they dry the seaweed, and they just crush them into little particles, so we can use them all year long. So that's pretty convenient. And the seaweed we use, after distillation of the 9 other botanicals, we steep in or macerate the seaweed in the gin for about 10 days.
Again, get geeky a bit, as you know, during the distillation, minerals, pigments, everything like that won't go through. And what is interesting about the seaweed is really those minerals that give you a mouthfeel, a lot of texture on the product. So we wanted to keep them and keep the color also. So we use them after the distillation. That will give a greenish tint on the gin, but still it's chlorophyll. Since it's chlorophyll, it will fade out in time. So it's really natural color.
Okay, Blair, does that answer your questions? Because I know that you were thinking about what's the seaweed going to add to the botanicals or how it was infused. Did you have anything else to kind of ask them about that?
No. Just that the like when you taste that gin, the seaweed is like just really layered in with the other flavors. You don't get a punch of seaweed. It just makes one of the best dirty martinis you can have, actually. It's kind of interesting because there's not a ton of seaweed gins in Canada. I can only think of 3 others. 2 are on the East Coast. In Newfoundland Distillery has a seaweed gin. Still Fired has a seaweed gin from the Bay of Fundy. And then on the West Coast, there's Sheringham. Is it Seaside or Seacoast?
Seaside.
Seaside.
When we started, there was I think there was one in Scotland, and I'm not sure if there was another one, but we were among like the first 3, and after that, you can see there's a lot more.
Right. And how is that different from this gin, the citrus gin? Yeah. Apparently, it's more citrus.
For this one, we had a flavor in mind that we wanted to achieve. So we started to. There's 1 year for it behind this gin. So there's a blend of 2 distillates. One from the traditional pot still from juniper, coriander, and lemon peel. But we also bought a vacuum pot still because we tried a small vacuum still in a lab in New Brunswick, make some comparison between the same botanical distill with a flame and vacuum, and there's a huge difference. Not to say one is better than the other, but there's a huge difference. There's some freshness in the vacuum distillation that you cannot achieve when you are at a regular atmosphere. So we bought that. Well, it's the biggest we could find, so it's 50 liter. But to be honest, it's 25 liter as the flask is entire. So it has to work like really hard, like 3 times a day, 4 days a week, and we made a maceration. We infuse all the citruses that are coming from Vietnam and Japan. So there's just help me there. There's a lime, kumquat, Buddha's hand,
yuzu,
sancho pepper. We also have
basil and peppermint. So the idea, just to come to Saint Laurent gin again. When we started, we created that gin with seaweed, which is really salty and mineral, and then we moved to the gin beer, which is barrel aged, so woody and whiskey notes. And so we wanted to have a really fresh and to move a little bit from that tasting profile from the marine to a more fresh product. So mainly focus on citruses, peppermint, and basil. So just to offer some different gin so people can explore those flavors.
And what is interesting on that one? It's so rich in natural oil that when you dilute it with water or ice or even tonic, it will do the same thing as a pastis or an absinthe. So it will go like really shady. It becomes white. So all the oils are like exploding in flavor.
Excellent. And that's this one here, or is that the citrus that you just described?
That's the citrus. I was closing on the citrus.
Yeah. So gin gin. So the seaweed gin, barrel aged for 1 year in the ex-bourbon casks.
Yeah.
So you have the same seaweed flavor profile, but also with the woodiness and the whiskey notes of the barrel aging.
And it's bottled at a slightly higher proof. The gin Saint Laurent is at 43. This one is at 47. So it's a bit stronger, a bit warmer. The profile is moving a lot with the barrel. Mainly the citruses and the orange peel are combining with the wood, so it gives you something really warm in the mouth.
All right. Next, actually, no. Drew, still going to get back to you. Just want to finish Blair, one question for you, because you mentioned a couple times now how impressed you were with the amount of gins available in Quebec and how they promote it. So when you go to the store in Quebec, lots of gins, a lot of distilleries. I'm starting to see what you mean and how much time they put into it. Why do you think there are so many different gins in Quebec? Question to you, Blair. Why do you think so many gins?
Well,
I think it's because there's a big trend on gin making, but also on gin consumption. So I think it's a trend. People are enjoy gin and tonic very much here. I don't know if it's the same elsewhere, but you see that happening also in the UK and Spain. People really crave new gins, and people just like to explore many flavors. So distilleries offer many flavors. So I think that I don't know what came first. Is it the gin offering that came first, or the gin crave from the consumer? I don't know. I think both are pushing each other in the forward. I don't know, but I think everybody sees on the distiller's point of view. I think most distillers see gin as the entry product that you can still have fun making, and the first step to something else.
Okay.
I also think that you have to see how Quebec entered the gin scene, because in 2010, when Ungava came onto the shelves, it was a huge hit. And other distilleries that followed Pinnacle at the time, they weren't looking to do a carbon copy of that style. They wanted to do a style that was their own. And as Davin said earlier, like you see that in cheese making in Canada, where you go across Canada and most provinces have like a blue cheese, you have a cheddar and maybe some goat cheese. But in Quebec, you have like wash rinds, there's fresh cheese, there's bloomy rind cheese, there's raclettes, there's semi-soft cheeses, there's curds, all kinds of stuff. And I think that there's an aesthetic where you want that artisans want to explore flavors, and gin is one of the perfect spirits to explore flavors.
Yeah, definitely. Well, gin is like liquid cuisine.
That makes sense.
So you start with juniper, and then you can explore anything. So it's a great way to start in spirit making, because you're not tied to anything. You just explore and have fun, and I think that people like that, just to discover new spirits. So it's fun to do.
But Joel, we have tasted a lot of gins, and there's no magic formula. They're not all the kind of thing you're going to buy 2 bottles of. Quebec distillers seem to consistently release gins that you would be happy to buy another bottle of. There's something in the air in Quebec that makes people that able to know when they have to keep working, so that by the time they release them, the gins are it's a phenomenon. It's a phenomenon in Canada. And as I say, I think it started with the bread, started with the beer, started with the cheese, started with the meat. But I think that you guys have a very high batting average for making wonderful gins that make you want to buy a second bottle.
Can we say that most places produce 2 or 3 gins? That's a question for any of you out there. I don't know, 2 or 3 or more?
About that, I would say. Yeah.
That sounds right.
All right.
I think there's about 90 gins made from Quebec producers at ACQ right now. Okay. So that's a lot. And you were right. Ungava was the first to propose a gin made in Quebec many years ago, and I think it's not a craft distiller anymore, but that doesn't matter. They still made the first step and show that you can make some spirit here in Quebec, and that was definitely the first step into what we're seeing right now.
and I appreciate it. It's good. Drew, do we have a question from the side?
Discussion on the side, and I believe now, I think when we were talking about the bourbon in a Scottish still was pre-show, and they're all talking about the 3 grain and trying to figure out what's interesting about it.
And here we've got this. This is what.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I don't know. Was this pre-show or did we say it on the show?
I believe we were talking pre.
Okay. Well, that's right. It's 75, 15, and 10. I believe that's the same. That's good. All right. Thank you very much, kind sir. We're going to go to a picture, and this is for Joël et Jean-François. Another good-looking picture right there. And I like this because we can see that you make rye and single malt as well. We talked about it a little bit. When did you start making rye? And I think single malt was 2017, right?
Well, yeah, we decided to start with 3 type of style of whiskey. So corn, rye, and single malt. Yeah. So we started with what you're enjoying right now, the 3 grain, mainly made with corn, and then we moved. I think what the second was single malt.
Well, yeah, it was single malt after that. So we made a bunch of single malt, and like we said a bit earlier, we were like really exploring all the possibilities of the still, the mashing, understanding how it works, how to cook, and everything. So we moved around, we moved the recipes a bit. Now we're settled. So again, there's the bourbon style, which we're drinking now. The single malt, what is funny with it, so we came with that idea that we all love like single malt from Scotland. And there's that tradition of peat smoking there. And we were like, well, they don't have trees anymore on Isla, so maybe that's why they don't use it. But we have a lot of trees here, so let's smoke it with maple wood. So we made we call it barley smokers. So it's a smoker. We smoke about a quarter of a ton of malted barley every day on it when we're smoking it. So we're making a single malt that will be smoked but with maple wood, and it's pretty unique as that it's not the same smoke as you will find in peat. It's lighter, and we also have this tradition of fish smoking here in Quebec, mainly in the eastern part. So we want to bring that tradition, the smokiness of the single malt, all together in that product. And we will always say that this one, we're used to have single malt that are aged like 8, 10, and 12 years. So we always say that the single malt will be ready when it will be ready. And we'll see. Before that, there will be the rye, which is 80% rye. It's a local, really local. It's pretty close from here. The rye is very, very spicy. And the rest of the mash bill is malted barley too.
And they're all malted, correct? You don't have any unmalted grain?
No, only the malt, the barley is malted. All the rest of the grain are unmalted.
Perfect. What do we think? Let's do a tasting note because we don't have too much time left, and I want everyone's opinion on the 3 grain. Davin, you said a sugary, on the nose.
Well, first of all, I'm surprised that it's 3 years old because I find it's more mature than that. You don't get those green notes that you normally find in a 3-year-old whiskey. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. And maybe not. But there's something sweet and fruity in here. And talking to Blair seemed to think it was maybe peaches or something like that. But there's a note maybe like cherry or something like that. But I find that this is a fairly complex whiskey. It's got lots of heat in it, but it's a pleasant heat. I find it sweet and caramely up front, but the fruitiness really kind of pushes the caramel notes into the background. I'm not tasting a lot of grain yet on this, but maybe I'm not. Maybe I just haven't waited long enough. And I don't get a lot of woody notes in it either. I think it's a really nicely balanced whiskey, which has more breadth and more complexity than I would have expected in a 3-year-old whiskey.
Joël and Jean-François, I don't know if you have or if you've tried these recently, but Drew and I were saying that we get kind of rockets on the end, the little powdery candies, the little round ones. That's what we get at the end of this. So rockets. So
yeah,
What do you
like
think, Blair?
green apple or powdered candy, maybe.
Yeah.
Those notes were in the distillate. When the moonshine came out of the still, you had those notes of maybe apple or powder candies, and also a lot of green hay notes.
Okay.
And now in the after the aging process, those hay notes really kind of disappear.
There's
We have to hear what Blair thinks because he's the tasting expert among us.
I wouldn't say that, but I also get there's a nice juiciness right up front before those spices and heat kicks in, and there's kind of like a toasted warmth I found. I don't know what that's from, but the peaches for me is just it just screams peaches and that kind of like candied peach taste. Yeah, it's.
And what do we say those they're sour peaches or no?
I think they're called fuzzy something or other.
Fuzzy peaches.
Yeah.
Peaches. Yeah.
So we're rockets here. Fuzzy peaches there. They're apples and
It's Halloween.
Very soon. It's perfect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, gentlemen, did we miss any tasting notes before because we're at the hour point? We're going to do a wrap up. But is there any other tasting notes you want to bring us to our minds a little bit?
Well, we are still discovering our own products. So we make tasting quite a while because it's fun, but we're still discovering new flavors. And this is not what you have, guys. It's not the final blend. It may be only 2 or 3 barrels. I don't know, but so we're still playing around for the final blend, and the next batch will be different. Like we said, we're still experimenting some new recipes, playing around with the yeast and stuff like that. So, but we think that we are improving the recipe over time. So hopefully it should be better over time.
Perfect. And we are all improving everything we do, right? That's what we do. Gentlemen, we've hit the hour. It's been fantastic. So we're going to sign off, and I'm giving everyone a last chance to say something. So I'll go Davin, Blair, Drew, and I'll finish off with you two gentlemen before we sign off, if that's all right. So Davin, you're up.
Hi, Davin de Kergommeaux. I encourage you to get a copy of this book and use the maps to visit all 200 and some odd distilleries in Canada and come back for the after dram because we're going to talk about Aceram, which is, I think, one of the most fantastic new things to come into the spirit world, and it comes from Canada, from Quebec.
Beautiful. I agree.
We also have to talk about some of the imagery on their bottles. It's quite spectacular.
And your shirt as well. You can go a little bit high, and they can see the beautiful shirts that we were given.
Yes, that's about as high as I can go right now. Pick up a copy of this book. Go to Quebec, drink some of their spirits. You won't regret a single moment.
Thank you, sir. Drew, you're up.
Yeah. Grab a copy of the book, travel around, taste the stuff. Gentlemen, congratulations. If this is at 2.5, I can't wait to taste everything else that you're bringing out.
Thanks.
Nice.
Thanks a lot, guys. It was a really nice time chatting with you. Hopefully, we chat again later with other whiskeys or other stuff.
And we'll invite people to come see us here in Rimouski and also visit other craft distilleries all around Canada. There's more and more people like us that have some fun producing nice spirits. So try them all and support local distilleries.
Thank you, sir. And This has been a fantastic start to our evening, everybody. Thanks to the listeners. Thanks to the panel over there. Joël, Jean-Francois, Davin, Blair, Drew, it's been an absolute pleasure spending my Saturday with you like every time. We're moving our conversation from the distillery tour to the tasting room for a more relaxed but equally engaging conversation. Co-authors Davin and Blair Phillips of The Definitive Guide to Canadian Distilleries, the portable expert to over 200 distilleries and the spirits they make, and the 50 to, did we say 70 in Quebec, will, of course, be joining us. So, because what better summer activity is there than traveling virtually, trying some cocktails, and spending time with great people? So please join us 5 minutes, roughly 5 minutes, on this channel for the After Dram. And if you don't want to miss a minute of our next 3, there won't be one next week, but the 2 after that, click the like and subscribe button, and we shall see you all soon. So everybody, santé, cheers.